Yeah, welcome to this TechEd session on the CIO guide for cloud and hybrid integration landscapes. My name is Matthias Allgaier. I am part of the product management team for the Intelligent Enterprise technology area, where we are also taking care about SAP's overall integration strategy. Yeah, so let's have a look at the agenda for this session today. So in the first part, I would like to give you an overview on the SAP integration strategy for the Intelligent Enterprise, and then also deep dive on the integration guides that we have also prepared for you as integration and enterprise architects. In the second part of the presentation, I would like also to set a foundation for this session with the integration solution advisory methodology. So this covers the major integration patterns that we are talking about also in the integration architecture guide here, and that's the foundation. And then as the main part of this session, I would like to go into two areas of integration. So one is the process integration area, and one is the data integration area. And finally, we will also conclude with the key takeaways and also give you an outlook on what's up next. Okay, so let's get started with the first part. And I would also like to start here with the overall integration strategy that we have outlined. So beginning of the year, we have published this integration strategy in a paper called SAP Integration Plan in the Cloud. So we have also linked this here for your reference to this presentation. And so basically what we are driving here is the end-to-end business process integration across the SAP products, but also including non-SAP products and third-party applications. And we do this not only from a technical integration perspective, we really drive this from an end-to-end business process perspective. And that's what you can see here in the upper part of the presentation of this deck, is that we are driving this along 4 end-to-end processes like lead to cash, design to operate, source to pay, and recruit to retire. And there are also more sub-processes behind this high-level processes. And this is really covering the overall value chain of an organization. And to really implement this end-to-end processes, we have, of course, the SAP products involved into this processes with the Intelligent Suite that you can also see here in the center of the presentation. That includes, of course, S4HANA and all of our LOB applications that together really implement this end-to-end processes. And to really come also to a consistent integration, we have also outlined 7 suite qualities that you can see below that are really the ingredients that allow you to integrate this end-to-end processes in a consistent and consistent manner here. And so the suite qualities are like a user experience where we are working on some consistent screen flows between the applications itself, but also including security identity management aspects, like having a single sign-on. Very important, I will also come to this in a couple of minutes, are aligned data models so that we have also consistent usage of a common data model across these applications, of course, over time. And there are many more suite qualities, like, for example, a one workflow inbox, having really one task management that includes the task of the various SAP applications, and also the end-to-end business process blueprints that also give you an overview on the end-to-end scenarios. So as the foundation here, we have the business technology platform, here in particular the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite. So this is really the foundation that provides you all of the integration services that are needed in this overall picture. So this is also shown on this slide. That's also the hybrid integration platform from SAP that we are providing, that covers all of the different services like cloud platform integration for A2A integration, B2B integration. We have, of course, also event-driven architectures included here with enterprise messaging. We have also rich capabilities, of course, to integrate with non-SAP applications with, for example, the open connectors. And I think also very, very important here is also the integration content that we are providing for this integration suite. So meaning APIs that you can see on the API Business Hub, but also the integration packages that really allow an end-to-end integration across the various applications, be it from SAP, but also from the non-SAP part. So that's also the foundation here for the integration strategy. And also, if we now also drill down into the integration guides, we really want to give integration and enterprise architects here a good overview and also recommendations on the various patterns and also when to use what of these integration services. So I will go to the next slide to also give you an overview on the various integration guides that we have provided. So as I mentioned on the left-hand side, at the beginning of the year, we published this SAP integration plan in the cloud. So this has more the end-to-end and LOB focus, where we also outlined roadmaps for the mentioned suite qualities. And on the right-hand side, and this is also the focus of this session, we have focused more on the technology perspective. So we have, or we will publish at TechEd the integration architecture guide for cloud and hybrid landscapes. So this is really complementing the high-level SAP integration plan in the cloud with technology recommendations and typical integration patterns that we find in hybrid landscapes. And complementary to this, we also provide a management abstract for the executive management, which is the guide we see here in the middle. So this is really a short guide giving an overview on the hybrid integration platform, and it's more targeting for executive management and also customers, partners that want to get an overview on this topic. And so in this session, as I mentioned, I will focus on the integration architecture guide, and I think it's also important. It's not a new guide, so it's really the third edition of the document that you already might know from the past. So we have renamed it to Integration Architecture Guide because we are addressing here enterprise and integration architecture architects. And so what we have updated here is basically two parts. So first of all, we have updated all of the sections, and we have, of course, also added newer parts like a one domain model, like cloud platform master data integration, and also analytics integration. So these are also some newer parts that we have added to the guide. And so I would like to also give you a rough overview on what's in the guide, in this integration architecture guide. So first of all, as I also mentioned before, it's based on the methodology, on the integration solution advisory methodology that you can see. Then we have also included topics, foundational topics like what's the aligned domain model strategy, how do APIs fit in and integration packages in this overall picture, and so on. In the main part of the guide, we are going into 4 areas of integration. So it's process integration, data integration, analytics integration, and user integration. So these are the major styles that we found here. We also added, of course, areas of the setup and operations domain like integration monitoring and the automation of integration. So what we also have here in the portfolio. So today I cannot go into all of the areas of the guide due also to this limited time. So I picked up a couple of, let's say, focus areas for today. So first of all, I would like to start with the methodology. Then we will also have a small chapter on foundation, and then the focus areas are really process and data integration that we will cover today. Yeah, as I mentioned, as the foundation, we are using the SAP Integration Solution Advisory methodology. So this is really a methodology. This is also open for customers and partners that allows an enterprise or integration architect to shape an overall integration strategy. So it includes, in a nutshell, a couple of integration patterns, typical patterns that we frequently found in hybrid landscapes. And so these patterns can then also be applied and derived in a specific customer context to the related best practices and integration recommendations in a specific customer context. And it also includes a couple of blueprints that can also be used as a template for integration architects. We also have a dedicated session on the methodology. So if you're also interested in this topic, so feel also free to join the IIS 104 session. To also go a bit more into the details of the methodology, as it's also the foundation for the integration architecture guide. So basically 3 steps. So the first step is that we really start really high level on a hybrid integration landscape. So what are different domains in there? Then we have in a second step integration patterns in a classified overview, like process integration patterns, data integration patterns, user integration, and IoT integration, to just name a few of them. And these patterns are very important, are technology agnostic, and can then be also mapped in a third step to integration technologies that are relevant in a specific customer context. I have also added just to give you a bit more of an impression on the methodology, a couple of these blueprints. You will also find them in a blog that we have recently published. So these are also some templates that allow you to jumpstart, for example, if you want to define your integration strategy, you are discussing with your project teams and integration architects on A2A integration patterns, on data integration patterns, on a digital integration hub. So there are many different areas of integration, and so the methodology also includes this kind of blueprints that you then also can use in order to really adapt this to your specific needs. So that's basically the methodology, and I would also like to now go into at least two foundational topics that we also have in the integration architecture guide that are also, I think, very helpful in this exercise here. So the first one that you can also find on the API Business Hub are the end-to-end process blueprints. So these are basically describing the end-to-end processes that I have also shown on my first slide. That allow you also to get an overview, okay, how is this end-to-end process also spread across the various applications. So you can also deep dive into so-called value flow diagrams, into collaboration diagrams. You can also figure out what is the data flow between the applications to really come to this end-to-end process. And so that, I think that's also very important for enterprise or solution architects to understand and then also adapt it to the specific needs in a customer context. And we also have a dedicated session here, CIS 103, where we also go a bit more into this end-to-end process blueprints. I think also very important for our integration strategy are also the aligned domain models going forward. So this is basically also addressing the integration challenges that you see today, that a lot of our data models are really not aligned, and this means that there's a lot of integration effort ongoing to really map all of the data. And I think one very important angle also in our integration strategy are these aligned domain models, where we really want to establish for the main domains kind of reference data models that are then also used and exchanged between our LOB applications. And so we have also published first models of this aligned domain models on the API Business Hub. So that's also something that you can see there. There's also an Explorer, a first version of an Explorer available. So you can, for example, also browse to first objects like cost center or workforce person here. I think the end-to-end process blueprints, as well as the aligned domain models, are really also complementary, and I think also a good foundation for integration enterprise architects when designing an overall strategy. And therefore, we have also included these two topics into the integration architecture guide. Okay, so far in a nutshell, we do not only want to talk about the specific products in the integration architecture guide, but we really base this on the foundation of a methodology, also including platform and technology agnostic patterns that then also can be adapted to the specific needs of a customer context. Okay, and so based on this foundation, I would like to also walk with you through the integration architecture guide. And the first area that we want to do is the process integration area. I think this is also one of the, of course, key foundations for every hybrid integration landscape. And so in this area, what you can see also here on this slide, it's an overview on the process integration capabilities that we have also on the SAP Cloud Platform. So the SAP Cloud Platform integration service, that's really our hybrid integration service that allows you to connect on-prem applications with cloud applications, but also cloud to cloud. integration is covered by SAP Cloud Platform Integration. And so this is also complemented by SAP Process Orchestration, more focusing on the on-prem to on-prem integration. And of course, also both services are complementary. And as part of the integration architecture guide, we have also included detailed guidance on when to use cloud platform integration and how to combine also with process orchestration. And also for customers that also want to migrate towards SAP Cloud Platform Integration, the integration architecture guide also includes some guidance there. I think the second point, what is also very important here, it's also the integration with the non-SAP or third-party applications that you can also see here. So we are also offering a rich set of connectors and also of integration packages, also including partner content and partner solutions. So that's also, I think, a key principle of our integration strategy, underlying also the openness of integration. And I think also a very important area of integration or domain of integration is B2B integration, and so the integration with business partners or the integration with also public authorities. So I think this is also a typical use case for this process integration. And as I mentioned, also in the integration architecture guide, we also provide more guidance and further links on these two very important areas here. One, I think, also frequent question that we got also from customers, especially also from integration architects, is this typical question, okay, so what integration logic should I put into a middleware, like process orchestration or SAP Cloud Platform Integration? And what kind of integration related patterns should I also, or could I embed more and nearer to the application layer? So one typical product that we have here, it's the SAP Application Interface Framework. So this is also part of S/4HANA or an add-on for the Business Suite that allows you also to implement some kind of integration logic within the application layer. And so what we did here also on this slide was to outline here typical integration patterns like a structure mapping. So if you have different data models, different structures, like routing, so you have, for example, the need to do a content-based routing, determining the receiver applications, or implementing patterns like to split messages or aggregate messages, or you need to adapt different protocols like SOAP, REST, OData, or JMS. So these are all typical and I think also traditional patterns for the integration layer, like cloud platform integration. But we also see here some patterns that can also be used in a complementary way, also in this last mile of integration nearer the applications. Like, for example, if you have some kind of a dynamic value mapping, maybe you also need to access backend logic that is typically within the backend application. So that could also be a pattern more related to the application layer. And or another example is the error handling by business users. So if you, for example, if an invoice fails and you want to also handle this invoice in the context of the application, I think this is also a typical pattern more for the application layer. And so what we also did here in the integration architecture guide, it's really also a foundation that you can use also if you want to, for example, derive your own integration guidelines, derive your own integration best practices. You can also use this this pattern or this as a starting point. Okay, so let us go also to the next very important area, also especially important also for the intelligent enterprise. It's about master data integration. So typically in the past, and we also try to show here this evolution of master data integration topics. So on the left-hand side, you can see typical point-to-point integrations that are really hard to maintain. And if master data is also, I think, one of the key challenges in hybrid landscapes. If you only have point-to-point integration, it's really hard to manage all of these different master data synchronizations and uploads. And the second step here in this evolution is master data governance. So really taking care of a central master data hub in the middle. And I think that's also still highly relevant. And the third evolution, and that's also now targeting to the intelligent enterprise strategy, is that we really want to simplify the exchange of master data between the LOB applications. And so for this purpose, we are, as I mentioned also before, we are working on these aligned domain models. And so based on these aligned domain models, we have with the SAP Cloud Master Data Integration Service also a new service, which is also part of the integration suite that allows really to simplify the exchange of master data between the applications. And so this is also complementary to the SAP Master Data Governance product, more focusing on the master data management. And so in the integration architecture guide, you will also find additional information on this pattern of master data integration. And I have also included one slide here to also show it a bit more in detail, also from a guidance perspective. So what you can see here on the lower part of the picture, it's the master data integration for the intelligence suite. I'm having Cloud Master Data Integration really as the central exchange infrastructure for master data to synchronize master data between the applications. And so this is also closely aligned with the initiative of the aligned domain models. And so it's also closely related to the roadmap for the aligned domain models that we have also exposed in the SAP integration plan in the cloud, what we also have linked here. And so that's also something that we want to increase in future, of course. And the second area of integration, if you then also want to integrate third-party integrations or maybe also leverage some additional integration patterns. So that's also where SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite can be used complementary, especially for the non-SAP integration part here. And so the integration to third-party and the governance part here. It's still, of course, complementary to SAP Cloud Platform, Cloud Master Data Integration. It's the SAP Master Data Governance. So this is also complementary here to this approach. I would also like to link you here to a dedicated session on master data integration and also on the one domain model. So it's the IIS 120, where you can also find additional guidance there. And I think there's also a very good blog out there also describing what we have also linked here in the presentation, also describing the complementary usage of master data integration and master data management. So if you're interested also here in additional details, also feel free to join this session or go to this additional information. Okay, if we also go through the various, let's say, types of integration, I think API-based integration, it's also a very key, let's say, use case of integration. Of course, APIs are also key for any digital transformation. And so we also have here on the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite a rich set of capabilities that also cover this area of API and also API management. Of course, we have the SAP API Business Hub that you can also see here in the middle part, where you can find APIs, where you also can find the integration packages, where you also can find the one domain models that have already been exposed, and also the reference processes. So I think that's not only related to APIs, but it's really a content store across all of the different artifacts for integration. And I would like to go here also in a specific context into the API management, because that's also one of the questions typically discussed in integration projects. So what kind of logic can I put into an API management layer, and what kind of logic can I put rather in a traditional integration layer like Cloud Platform Integration? And that's something that we also expose here on the next slide. Also in a similar way, some guidance on integration patterns here. So typical patterns that you can implement, or that we also recommend to implement in the API management layer, are all of the patterns related to API traffic management, like policies, like quotas, like spikes that you want to manage. So I think this is a typical area. Of course, also API security policies is something that you typically implement in an API management layer. Of course, also analytics on APIs and monetization use cases. And then complementary to this are also the patterns like structure mappings, protocol adaptations, routing splitter aggregator. So these are also typical patterns that can be implemented in the integration layer. As I also mentioned, it's not always black and white. We also use this also as part of the integration architecture guide, really as a starting point for integration architects to also adapt this then to the specific areas in a customer context. So it should also be some guiding principles that you can also derive out of this overview. So this was now the first part of integration, the first style of integration, which was process integration with the different capabilities like A2A integration, B2B, master data integration, API-based integration. And now we come to the second, also very important pillar of integration, it's data integration. So let's also move on here to the next slide, and that's also covered by the SAP Data Intelligence portfolio and the related SAP Enterprise Information Management portfolio. So what are the challenges here that we are facing in hybrid landscapes? What we can see here is that data is really, overall in the hybrid landscape, that we have a lot of different, let's say, data sources, data targets with data warehouse, with data marts, with cloud data storages. So we have a lot of different areas where we are dealing and transforming data, be it on the cloud, be it on-prem, be it in hybrid scenarios. And this also makes a lot of complexity, or adds complexity to the data landscape, because we then also have to figure out how to manage all of the metadata, the data catalogs, and so on. And of course, also very important, how can you also use this data then in the context of business processes? And I think that's exactly also the challenges that we tackle with the SAP Data Intelligence portfolio, really as a hybrid data management platform, allowing you to implement data integration use cases. So this means that you can also extract data out of the different sources, also put it in a semantic context, and then also prepare it for further usage. And we also have a dedicated session here on this SAP Data Intelligence area. So it's DAT 110. So I could also highly recommend to attend this one. So I think also in the integration architecture guide, we also want to provide you with guidance also on the data integration tool set. As I mentioned, data integration, it's really our target solution, where we also streamline the different data management capabilities like data integration, data management, and data processing. But of course, there's also an existing portfolio that's of course also still valid. And also in the integration architecture guide, we give some guidance here. So for example, when to use data services, when to use, for example, the integration capabilities within HANA, so smart data integration, for example, if you want to load data into HANA. So there's also a dedicated chapter in the integration architecture guide, and also dedicated decision table that also gives you more recommendations, and also more guidelines and guidance on when to use the data integration tools, and also how to combine them. So I think that's also a very important aspect of the integration architecture guide, with the target picture of the SAP Data Intelligence. And I think also one important topic, if you are designing an overall enterprise integration strategy, it's also the relationship between process integration and data integration, also now comparing and bringing together the first part of the presentation with the second part of the presentation. So process integration, covered here with the SAP Cloud Platform integration suite and the related capabilities. It's all about chaining business processes, as we are also doing this in the intelligent enterprise, of course, in hybrid landscapes. So we have typical patterns, A2A integration, business partner integration, of course, also master data integration as the key foundation for any process integration. And typically, we also need to deal from an integration perspective with transactional integrity, meaning, for example, rolling back messages, also having a monitoring on the single messages related to business documents. And typically, this kind of integrations are also API-based. And also complementary and compared to this, it's the data integration style that you can see on the right-hand side. So it's also about integration, but integration on the data layer. This means pipelining and orchestrating data in hybrid landscapes. You have the typical ETL-like scenarios where you extract and process data. The data integration flows are much more on the data orchestration level with, for example, reading data from storages, also transforming it, preparing it to be used in a business process context. And typically you are also dealing with an access on data level and not on the business API level. So this is also something that you can find in the integration architecture guide, also with additional guidance. So that should also help you to really shape an overall enterprise integration strategy here. Yeah, so far we have seen the process integration and the data integration part of the guide. And of course, we have many more interesting topics also in the integration architecture guide that I could not bring into this presentation, but I would like to give you a heads up on this. So we have event-based integration included. I think that's also very important, also especially in hybrid landscapes. Then we have in addition a section on AI-driven integration that I could also not embed into this TechEd session. So it's all about simplifying integration, also leveraging machine learning capabilities and crowdsourcing technologies to, for example, simplify the task to create mappings and also to customize interfaces. So I think that's also a very important approach. Then analytics integration, so that was also a new part in the guide that we have added. So what is the overview and the approach to integrate, for example, SAP Data Warehouse Cloud and SAP Analytics Cloud. Then in the area of user-centric integration, so we have, for example, if you want to integrate mobile applications, if you want to integrate Fiori-based applications, the integration guide also, or integration architecture guide also covers a subset of these patterns. We are specifically focusing on the various data provisioning options and regarding the SAP Fiori user experience, and also give some recommendations there. And of course, also the cross topics like integration monitoring, integration automation are also part of the integration architecture guide, where you find also some additional guidance, of course. Yeah, so let me also wrap up this TechEd session here with the key takeaways. So I think it was a run through the various aspects of hybrid integration strategy that is also covered in the integration architecture guide. I think three main takeaways we have with the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite. We have one hybrid integration platform that covers all of the different integration services needed to integrate SAP, but also the non-SAP space, also including business partners. So that's really the hybrid integration platform, covering also process and data integration capabilities, also including event-based integrations and so on. So that's the platform. The second key takeaway for me is the integration solution advisory methodology. So that really helps you to guide your integration architects and your integration projects with related guidance. So you can also use this methodology. We also provide a free template for the methodology to derive the various integration patterns, explore what is relevant in your context, adapt it, of course, also to your dedicated recommendations in your context. And the third key takeaway is the integration architecture guide that I have mentioned and presented here in this session. So this also is based, of course, on the methodology, but it also gives you more context and more and additional recommendations also of how these patterns can be implemented based on the tools and on the services that we have in the integration suite. I think these are the three main key takeaways. Also as an outlook, so we plan to publish the integration architecture guide and this CIO guide at TechEd. You will also find the links then on our SAP Integration Solution Advisory Methodology webpage that I have also included here into the deck. There you will also find the links to further information regarding the methodology, also regarding integration patterns and so on. In addition, also from an overall integration strategy perspective, we will also update on a regular basis the intelligent enterprise overview, what we published with SAP's integration plan in the cloud. And I think also very important, it's the SAP Roadmap Explorer, where you can also find detailed roadmap information and detailed information on the progress on the various areas, be it on the functional side, but be it also on the technical side. So I think this is also something that you can use to also blueprint your architectures. And finally, I would also like to thank all of the customers and partners that also provided feedback in the last 2 or 3 years on the integration and CIO guides. I think this was always very helpful for us to also improve the guides. And that's something that we also want to continue. So we also highly appreciate your feedback. So if you are missing some topics in the guide, or if you are missing some maybe also new patterns that might come up in the future in the context of hybrid integration, so really feel free to reach out to us so that we then also can use this as a kind of a backlog for future updates of the guide. So feel free to also send us an email or approach us here. Yeah, finally, I would also like to refer you to additional sessions that we have here at TechEd this year. And I also mentioned them as part of my presentation, because this was now more the umbrella. And if you are interested in the detailed presentations and in the details of the various topics, feel free also to attend the sessions. Yeah, that also relates me to the last slide, the learning experience for TechEd, where you can also, of course, find additional sessions on the Learning Hub and to also improve your solution skills on the various topics, especially also on the integration area. We have many different sessions available. And so I would also like to thank you for attending this session. I hope this was also interesting for you. And you will also find more details than when the guides are published. Thanks a lot for joining this session.